Hello and welcome, everybody. We hope you're doing well today. It is our sincere pleasure to be here today. Okay, today our focus will be language and preservation. I'm going to introduce a couple of our speakers today and just tell you the different individuals that were involved in creating this presentation. And we'll introduce ourselves a little bit when we get to our own slides. But we have our esteemed guest here today, Chief Lorenzo Sanford. Chief Sanford became chief of the Kalinago tribe in Dominica at age 22, which I cannot imagine starting that. He tells me that I would step up if I were in those circumstances, but he's done an amazing job. He's been involved with the United Nations, World Health Bank, or the World Bank, the WHO, different governments and different components to lead his people to this very thing that we're talking about today. We also have a pleasure of having Claire Francis. She's in our front row and she'll introduce herself a little bit more. I knew Claire Francis from the Fulbright process, but she is with the Center for Language and Learning and brings some amazing skill sets to this. On the screen, I will bring her over eventually or you'll hear her. We have Laura L. Coming from Dominica, so I'm gonna bring her over so you can see her right now. There is the beautiful Laura L. here to speak with us today, and she is joining us from her tropical haven as we're presenting. We also have some students that have been amazing in this. Zinyu is a student that works with me for Mobile Clinic, and she has been an amazing asset in this process. And then Olivia and my student Kelly View. So today we will talk together, all of us, about historical and preservation aspects. Chief Lorenzo will talk a lot about specifically the experience of the Kalinago, and then we'll talk about some ways that we have worked together to hopefully preserve some of the language and the culture. And then at the end, we'd like your thoughts too, because we all bring different things to the table and we'll all learn together as we work together. So we have a couple of things related to this. There should be some Dominica sheets, and I will pass those around so you can have some physical information about the nature island of the Caribbean. But we also have some additional information, again, talking about the national flower, which I know Laura and I and Lorenzo have talked about, talking about the pristine beauty of the island as well. Okay. Then, for the Kalinago tribe, I'm going to let Lorenzo do a lot of this discussing of the Kalinago tribe. And I will kind of move things along as he goes. But we will kind of tell you a little bit about the history of the Kalinago as he starts out today. So Lorenzo, I'll turn it over to you and let you kind of speak about who you are, how you got there, and about your people.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Thank you all for being here this morning. I really appreciate the wider group here this morning. Past days we didn't get a wide group, but I appreciate the fact that you all are being here and quite interested in learning more about my island, Dominica, the importance of just preserving on a whole. And sometimes we as young people, I would say, are not too sure of where we are right now, where we want to be in life. And most times we find ourselves in, situations we may seem or think that it is difficult, but it's all in the light of we being able to better handle these situations and, survive and continue what we want to do as young people on the whole. So I appreciate the fact of me being here this morning, me being able to present to quite a young group. I see an elder there, but You may be young in spirit as well. Um, thank you all for being here. My name is Lorenzo Sanford. I am the chief of the Kalinago tribe of Dominica. I became the chief of that tribe in 2019, September of 2019. The Dominica itself is a small island. We have 72,000 people. The Kalinago indigenous people are about 3% of that, so that's about 3,000, 2,700 people on the island. Originally, the entire Central Caribbean was the indigenous people. I think the entire world itself was, indigenous, had indigenous roots on that time. And we moved up the island chain, starting from the Orinoco Basin, going all up the islands, using just what we need of each island itself. So we settled on right now we are on the eastern side of the island of Dominica. We have 3,786 acres, consists of 8 villages, and that's where we are forced to be because of colonization itself. Um, so within the Kalinago territory, we have the Kalinago Barana Ote. That is our historical site, which provides the information to individuals about the Kalinago people, how long we have lived, where we came from, how we lived back in the days. What have happened is that we have somewhat modernized from this style of living and all of that, because in 2017 we suffered a catastrophic hurricane, which was Hurricane Maria, which destroyed, I would say, everything on the island of Dominica itself. Within the Kalinago territory itself, we lost 98% of our housing stock, totally destroyed. On the trees within the island itself, nothing, no leaves were remained on these trees. So all these have helped me in the gear of being, putting myself forward as as a young person, to seeing somewhat something different for my community, because it brought us to a stage where I see that, we can be better able to build back in itself. So starting from zero, more resilient. Because one thing about the preservation of anything, it comes to the individuals themselves, or people who live within that society itself. So we as individuals need to see how we can be better able to contribute in our small ways. So in my small way that I feel that I was able to contribute after this catastrophic hurricane was reaching to all different agencies in how we can, better able to build back. So in terms of housing, agriculture, the way of life, how we can do these things. So in the space of the Kalinago territory, we had 742 homes. Right now, after Hurricane Maria, the housing stock was destroyed 98%. So I reached out to different agencies for the government. So we had, under the World Bank, we had different programs being done, housing programs. So we actually got 147 homes that is being built within that community itself, which is quite a bit. Reach out to the European Union, which actually gave their support in 50 homes within the space itself. Again, all the different agencies pre-Conco. So I would say we are well on the way of reaching back to that style of living. The idea of going back into our agricultural ways of what we have, because whenever a storm passes through, we all need to eat. So we looked at agriculture in that manner. Reach out to the World Bank, where they give a lot of incentives, the UNDP, giving the different incentives that will help us in the idea of reaching back to that style. So in the traditional thing of the Kalinago territory, we have at the Barana Ote, we have these structures that are there. It is placed in a way facing the sea, facing the horizon, because it is believed that new things come from that thing. We are a very spiritual people, so new beginnings. These sculptures are made from a fern, and we have a small replica here of them. And these faces are placed out facing the horizon. Always believe that the Kalinago people will have something new that will come from that horizon one day, something better to represent us, something better that will change the life of we the people and the Kalinago community itself. So in terms of the Kalinago territory, we have the forest have been a main part of the Kalinago people. We use it for everything that we do. And it all branched off to an idea that Miss Abrams here brought to the Kalinago space. What happened was that as an indigenous community, we use everything around us. So the plants, which is the forest, have provided us. And we always believe as indigenous people that if we take care of, and I think we should all think that way in everything that we do. If we take care of Mother Nature will take care of us in return. So the forest provides everything that we need. So we traverse in the entire Caribbean islands. We used to go into the deep forest, harvest the huge trees of that forest, and we would use meat to make our boats that we could be able to travel from island to island. So on a bright, sunny day, you would be able to stay from the north of an island within the Caribbean to see the south of the next. So we'll be able to move through these islands. And we always use just what we need of these islands. When we feel that we have used a lot of the resources of it, or some of the resources, some people of the tribe may stay behind to look after what is there. Some people move on. One of the things that we talk about is the boats. This is a elder within our Kalinago community who actually does the crafting of these boats. Before we did it in our traditional way using stone axes and all of that, we have now modernized to using chainsaws, which will make the work much faster and quicker.
So Lorenzo, can you tell us a little bit about this gentleman? Because I think that is one of the things that has been so compelling to me. How old is he?
Okay, so his name is Napoleon Sanford. He's one of the oldest boat makers in the Kalinago tribe. Because of what have happened in the past, we have now modernized into modern ways of doing things right now. Traditional knowledge is somewhat being lost. So the traditional ways of making these boats are somewhat being lost by the elders. And if someone don't, because right now we have a young individual with him that is actually learning how to make these boats. And we will further go on to the language side of it, which Miss Francis will talk about in a bit. So all of this knowledge what we have done is that we are trying to document this information so that it won't be lost when a new generation comes along. So this is the boat making. We have a process in a few that we will reach up to. So these are the boat, how it is made. We use fire on the outside, which will help and water on the inside of the boat, which will help in forging it and making it light, so that when the carving of it will help in the easy carving of the process of making the traditional boat itself. Fire is used on the outside and wetting it as it goes along. What it does is that with the modern boats that is made of fiberglass, when these boats turn over at sea, it sink. You will not have anything to float on if you are right out at sea. But what is also interesting about these traditional boats, it's that if it is turned over, if a wave turn it over at sea, it will still float, and you would be able to turn it over, or you would be able to float on it to come back to the island or wherever that you may be. Also, as you can see here, we have a traditional fishing net. Within the Kalinago territory as well, we have actually eliminated the idea of using the wire fish pots. Why is because when these pots somewhat are lost at sea, the amount of fish that may be in them, we don't know how long that it takes to decompose under the sea. So what we have done is that moved back into the idea of using this traditional way of using bamboo and more natural materials for making these traditional fishing pots. If it gets lost at sea, it takes less time to decompose, and the amount of biodiversity that is there might not be damaged or lost to some point.
And how do you say the word for small boat in Kaladago?
So for small boat, it means Tilu Kanawa. Tilu means small, Kanawa means boat in the Kalinago language.
And which tree is this tree?
The tree that is used for making these traditional fishing boats is one of the largest trees in the forest of the Caribbean, which is called the Gomye tree. And it is actually found in the deep valleys of this forest. It is cut down and the boat is made in the forest itself, and it takes a lot of hauling based on where it is to pull it right down to these places where we used to fish. Okay, so in the idea of jewelry, we have a lot of jewelry here that is made from the craft of the Kalinago people itself. And if you take a look, you will see the idea of making these crafts in these ways. It's that the seeds that were used are all part of Kalinago culture. What we use these seeds for as we move along these islands of the Caribbean, we use them for planting because some of them seeds, as you can see, there are black seeds in it, white, the red. The black seeds were traditionally used for hunting, so it would be used and rolled up into a leaf, which they made a blowpipe, a blowgun, and it would actually cause a lot of damage to an animal or whatever that we will be hunting at that time. The brown seeds in it are used for the bigger trees of the forest, where they know that a lot of these birds eat from these trees. So that's why we actually plant them as we move along the Caribbean. So even though that we hunt these birds, we know that the birds will come back to eat these particular fruits that these seeds are formed from. Also there are other materials in it. So we have the bamboo. The bamboo, what we use back in the days and still use to this point, is that because of how our island is very mountainous, we use it for land stabilization. So it is planted in different areas where we know that land is will slope or slide away. And because of the deep-rooted system of the bamboo itself, when we plant in those areas, it helps with the land stability, and we can use the bamboo for cutting, where we can also use it in making the traditional fishing pots, as I mentioned earlier.
And one thing that I always think is really neat is that even the dyes are natural. So there's a plant called the anato plant, and it's a reddish plant. My daughter knows it as the lipstick plant, and she would bother you about that. But again, it can dye your skin, dye your lips. It can also dye different seeds and other things as well.
So here we have two women of the Kalinago tribe that actually still continues to do the natural weaving and making baskets of plant material within this space. The plant that is usually used to make these baskets or purses is called the lauma plant, and it is used for making this in different purposes. These women actually are somewhat of the last weavers of the Kalinago tribe. What we have tried to do in the past is pushing this knowledge through the school system. So we have one of these women who is Cecilia Benjamin, who always try to volunteer for the schools in teaching the young people about our traditional way of doing these baskets and the income that can be derived from these baskets. So I can pass one of these small baskets around. You could open it, look on the inside, so you will see the different. You can pass both of them. On the inside, we have actually moved into more modern ways of doing it, making it look a little more modernish, more stylish for people who have that idea of it. This is the bottom of it, how it is made. So actually, they would use the weaving, pass each through, up and down through the different layers, and make it into whichever size basket that you would like. So this is the base start of this basket. You could actually open it, sir, and look on the inside.
And when students come with us, and we've been to the Kalinago territory in the past, they have let us spend some time making the baskets. And I can tell you, It is hard work to get that done. I had an appreciation for the skill that it takes to do that. And my baskets that I made were always the baby baskets with a lot of effort.
Yeah, so these are some of the necklaces which I explained earlier that is made from the tribe. It is actually used as jewelry right now, but these seeds are actually seeds from the different plants of the forest, and if they are soaked, they will definitely grow. That's the modern way of carrying these seeds that we have.
And so part of the economic revitalization of these products is to also develop this into the community. And so can you talk about where they're sold on the island too?
Okay, so these baskets can only be found in the Kalinago territory. It's authentic to the Kalinago tribe. Most of these times what we see, it's the Chinese make a lot of lookalikes to this thing. So what we are hoping to do in the near future is create that branding, and so that we'll be better able to have control over the things that we sell within the Kalinago tribe itself. I mentioned earlier of my visit here and why Janine is part of it, of this big movement, is that there was 5 or 6 students that came to the Kalinago space, and why we choose this, the how you call it, the medical side of it, is because indigenous people always look at the things within their surroundings. So we use the plants for making a lot of our herbs for healing and all of that. And what we have seen is that many times within the tribe, we use these plants, but we have it called in our traditional names. But on the modern side of it, there is a scientific name to it. So each of these students were given 2 plants that they were able to research on and find out more information on what are the uses for it within the tribe itself. What we saw there was that the research that was done here in the States about it, we found out the scientific name that is given for these plants. Same similar uses that we use in the States. They have in the tribe itself, the islanders of the States have now modernized it, make it into a pill. What we have also seen is that whenever people fall sick within the tribe itself and they go to a doctor, they usually ask the question, are you on any medication? Usually our first response is no, because we don't really consider the traditional medicine to modern medicine. So what happens is that we tell the doctor no, the doctor prescribes the medication for us, which is a pill, but we have already taken our traditional medication, which have somewhat caused us to overdose ourselves without we knowing that we are doing these things. So it is part of us that we reach out and did a lot of research. What we are hoping to do in the near future is that a book or something be made with the connection that we have with this university in the medical field, so that we can better be able to administer the herbal medicine with our traditional medicine, and see in ways how we can use it for the better of the Kalinago people or within both nations itself. Because with the information that can be gathered, it's I will consider it a two-way help. You help us with modernizing the way of making medicine. We help you with the traditional names of what we have passed on for many, many years. So it is a great opportunity for me being here and explaining all of this in that field. So in terms of the language preservation, over the Kalinago tribe have had a very small percentage of people who actually spoke the Kalinago language. What we did was that through people who have passed moved within the tribe many, many years ago, actually documented some words of Kalinago, and which have been passed on for many years. What have happened was that in the early, between 1.5 to 2 years ago, our shaman, who is our spiritual leader, we had a meet in Martinique where we met with other indigenous people over the Caribbean and the southern continent. And what we saw was that a lot of the words that were being used in Kalinago matched with some of them that we used a lot of the words that we use in Kalinago match with some of them that we use in that was spoken, that is still being spoken in the southern continent. And what we have done is that we have did a little exchange and hoping to, do furthermore from that. We have created a small book together with the Kalinago people, the UNDP, and the government of Dominica, which you'll be able to see here. We have did a small coloring book and a small comic book as well, all in the idea of promoting that the Kalinago language and reviving it. Further on, Miss Claire here will give a little presentation of what we have helped to do in Iowa itself, and hoping to see that we can have more being done from that. So I appreciate this help, Miss Claire.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Yep, we can switch over.
This one? No.
Yep.
Hi, everyone. My name is Claire Francis. I'm the director of the Center for Language and Culture Learning in Phillips Hall, Division of World Languages. First of all, I have to say I just got out of a root canal, so I am slurring a little bit. Let me go over here. Here, first of all, I think I have to admit, full disclosure, I am not a language preservationist. I'm someone who has a can-do attitude. I think is what I told Janine, is that I have ideas and I have a can-do attitude. So one of the things that I thought about when I met Lorenzo last Thursday, I want to say it was just Thursday, was the need for language preservation, or my connection with it is actually through the Meskwaki tribe that is in Tama. I made a short film with some students a few years ago interviewing Meskwaki tribal members about the importance of language preservation for their tribe, and how a lot of the more poignant messages that they say is that they can only talk to God in Meskwaki language. They can only practice their cultural traditions in the Meskwaki language. So that's the little tiny bit of background that I have in connection to language preservation. I also have these folks who work with me. And what we did this past week is that when we met Lorenzo, as soon as we met him, take a second for that, is as soon as we met him, I said, we have to get some recordings of some speech acts, because that's what you need to do for language preservation. There are three major steps, I would say: documentation, education, and promotion. So that was what we did. We brought him into our podcasting studio and we made some short little audio recordings. And then we took those and made an open educational resource in a matter of hours. And that was, if you go back a slide, that was the work of my lovely team. This graduate assistant just whipped it together. It's amazing. Luke did a lot of the recording. So I don't know if you have the link to
Yeah,
that?
I'll bring up the link for you while you're talking.
Okay.
And then I have the slides for you to kind of show as you're going through.
Okay. So this is, then my background is as an instructional technologist. I know about how to make an open educational resource. And this is a press book that we quickly put together with the, oh yeah, you're going to the link, right?
Yep.
With the vocabulary that Lorenzo gave us, and we made learning activities out of them. So we're going to see this in,
Sorry,
2 seconds.
we get there. And I think I have the link in the next slide.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh, so there you go. So this is it. I can scroll here.
Yep, you can show them everything.
So this is the book. We have the contents over here. We made 2 small chapters, one on the natural world and one on greetings and salutations. So in the vocabulary chapter where we were, as you can see, is that we first started with a Google slide where you can, this is literally a recording of one of the books that Lorenzo signaled. That's over here. Because it is a bilingual book, that we just had him read these, and then you can kind of stop on these discrete words and have the audio come through. So this is just really about learning words, and then there's listen and repeat for all of these words. And I will tell you, I have memorized the word for birds because it is at the top of this drag and drop matching activity. So we made some quick learning activities with a tool that's called H5P and integrated into Pressbooks. One of them is this word search on all these words that are below, that are more like words about beauty and things like that. There are some adjectives and some things that substantives. And then this is a matching game that says the word and you have it in English and Kalinago. So that was, this is just examples of what we quickly pulled together. Would I call this a language preservation effort? I don't know. I would say it's a tool that could be used, right? So there's a whole flashcard system for, whoops, gotta click here, learning. These are audio as well. And then there's a dictée, as we like to say in French, to listen and repeat and write out the word. So this is what we pulled together in a matter of hours as an effort to showcase and have an exemplar of what we could do as a sort of educational tool for language preservation. But I do think one of the first steps, because there are so few speakers of Kalinago, is to document and to get some audio and video of the shaman, who is the best speaker, is what you said, Lorenzo, right? And then to really kind of, and this is what the Meskwaki did, is they incorporated into their school system a whole educational pathway in learning the Meskwaki language. So I think that would be, as you have the leaders who are going into the school to do work in cultural preservation, you could have that in language preservation. That's about all I've got.
Claire is amazing. So when I came to her, if any of you are thinking about doing a Fulbright, Claire is amazing. And I've always went to her for different language components. She teaches a lot of not teaches, she directs a lot of the language resources. And on our world language page is a whole bunch of different languages, less commonly spoken languages as well, from all over the world. As I've had friends in different cultural communities and they've looked at those pages, they've found resources that have helped their communities to do different initiatives. So she's very humble at doing that. And when I asked her if she knew how to do some of these steps, she said, no, I don't really know. I'm not an expert. But then she gave me a page of like 25 things or 20 things that she came up with. So she is incredibly knowledgeable, and the can-do attitude, Lorenzo would probably say too, that is the Kalinago spirit as well. And that is, my spirit with a lot of the things we do, Laura's spirit, and how we work together. So if you would have saw Claire last Thursday, I mouth dropped like to the floor. She was like this. She knew what to do. She explained it. She knew those through pieces. And Lorenzo was whisked away to a room and came back. And this is some of the first recordings of the words that we know about, right, Lorenzo?
That
So
would be really important. First step is to really document, I think.
yeah.
And then get the kiddos involved.
And one thing Claire said to me, Lorenzo had given me a list of words, and we had been working on the organization of those words. How do you look at it in a dictionary, or how do you look at it in a book? But she said, that's not how you learn language. You learn language by the interaction, by the speaking. If you think of like Duolingo or things like that, that make it an activity and make it memorable. And so this was part of how she said people learn language by repeating it, by associating it with the story. And then you're also preserving the story.
Right, yeah. So we might make a bilingual edition of some of these books. We'll see.
Yes, we've submitted to some of the press to see if we can get copyright permissions to continue to record some of those things.
I don't have anything else.
Yeah. Claire did a great job. Sounds good. I think that's an important lesson for all of you as well. Sometimes you might not have all of the answers. You might not have all of the pieces, but you might find friends that have different pieces that you can ask. And so Lorenzo will help me with something, Laura will help me with another piece. We all put it together by working together. And then you have this product that's come from what seemed like not having all those skills. So now it is my pleasure to start to kind of bring Laura over, and I'm going to work Google Magic as we're doing this and drag her over as well. So I'll have to kind of reposition her screen a little bit, but I asked her to be here today because Lorenzo will tell you that the three of us work together quite a bit. And really, I feel like are a good friend group for supporting each other, sometimes giving each other a hard time, but making work fun at the same point. He's been putting up with my family and my kids for the last week and has not been complaining, and in fact has been doing a lot of great things with them. Laura is like that as well. Laura, can you start out today by sharing a little bit about your background with traditional healing and indigenous and spa therapies? Because I think that is an important piece, and I will make you big.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm so honored to be here with my brother, Chief Lorenzo, my sister, Dr. Abrams, and Claire, who I think you are just amazing. You know, I'm so inspired by what you've done in 6 days. So a little bit about me. I'm Canadian by birth, but I say that I don't think I was meant to stay there. From a young age, I started traveling, and I grew a passion for ecotourism and sustainability. And while most of the world was focused on environmental sustainability, and that is important, I just felt there were a lot of people already working in that area. And I had an epiphany when I was trekking in the Himalayas at one point, realizing the people of a lot of destinations are not being treated so well through tourism. So I went back to school. At the time I was a dental assistant, and I went and studied and got my undergraduate degree in ecotourism and outdoor leadership. I then moved on to earn a master's degree, and my thesis was around Indigenous inspired healing therapies. So really, how can we respectfully take some of that knowledge from indigenous communities and help them to create a form of revenue that can actually do what we're talking about today, which is traditional knowledge preservation for the purpose of earning livelihoods in the community, which is really muchly needed these days, because often you will get the nonprofits come in and say, you have to preserve, you have to do this, but then there's no economic connection to it. And so what I've learned through very carefully designed programs and also through the thesis work I did, I actually came up with a code of conduct that spas and Indigenous communities can use so that this can be done in a way that is not exploitive. Chief Lorenzo talked about the look-alike baskets that were created by non-Indigenous community members who wanted to capitalize from this cool thing that's in the Indigenous community. Well, they're basically stealing this idea and then making money off of it. And what benefit did the community get? Little to none, right? So in the way that you can do what I'm talking about, you can actually encourage the development of spa and wellness programs in communities. I'll say a little bit about one of my inspiring persons and mentors for a short while. Dr. Wade Davis has his PhD, and he's actually an explorer in residence in National Geographic. And he says that the loss of language is similar to the canary in the coal mine of the situation a culture might be in. So if you look at globally how quickly language is lost, it's actually like dangerously, rapid. And we do look at frog species and all these other things from the science, the natural science side, but less people are looking at the loss of language. So that's part of why I'm inspired, is like, this has to happen soon and now. And part of my work, I was in the Solomon Islands, which is near Fiji, in 2000, and the Indigenous community came to me then and said, we need your help. If we don't retain and preserve and record some of these things, like Claire was saying, the recording is so important. They said to me, my grandkids don't really care that much, so I need to A, inspire them to care, and B, record this, so when I die, it's not lost, right? So again, it's not just writing in a book, because that's not all that helpful, but what are the other creative ways we can do to preserve the culture? So over the years, I've worked for different countries, and with the United Nations, different agencies. I'm one of the advisors for the UN Tourism Agency, and I go to different countries and help advise destinations on how they can also preserve, whether it's South Korea, China, and my next mission is probably to Egypt, to help to look at, what are these traditions that are there, and how can we use wellness tourism to incorporate them. So just a couple ideas of how we're doing it here in Dominica is our owner of the Jungle Bay Resort, Eco Resort, where I am, his wife, Glenda, is part Kalinago. And so back 20 some years ago, when they were developing the spa, she went and asked the elders for permission. And that was Gerald, who you're hearing about, the shaman. So they asked permission to put some of those treatments into our spa so that they can be carried on. So we have one called Pied Mole, which is a foot treatment using the local castor oil and other remedies that you would find in the forest. And it's actually used in the spa. So we're also selling those products that you saw, the bead necklaces and the baskets in the gift shop, to earn revenue for Cecilia and her family and others in the community. And right now we're working with Chief Lorenzo on a body product that we can incorporate with lemongrass and different essential oils. So that's a little bit of a nutshell of what my connection to this topic today.
And I'll ask Laura to kind of chime in a little bit as we go together. Laura and I actually met, we met at my wedding. She was at the old Jungle Bay when I was there getting married, and we didn't really know each other and talk. But when the older location for Jungle Bay was destroyed by a tropical storm in 2015, Laura and I were the emergency response. We were the people that were fundraising, trying to connect people, doing things for Sam as we were trying to get guests and both our friends out and to safe places. So we've been interconnected for a long time with that. We also have been interconnected again with this idea of ethnopharmacology, or therapies from different Indigenous cultures. So what you can see on the screen a little bit is at the College of Pharmacy, we also have a garden that's called the Roots of Medicine Garden, and it's associated with a rare book collection here at the university. You can hover over different things on this website and you can see different plant lists, but it is looking at the traditional healing of different plants. And again, both Laura and I do that together. So from the early days of Jungle Bay, these are some of the first things that we started. And Lorenzo mentioned this a little bit as we were going together. We created this kind of documentation form. And so when the students are doing those interviews, initially it was a lot of the people that we knew from Jungle Bay, but now Lorenzo has connected us. Lorenzo, what was the name of the healer that we saw most recently? One that she has her house and her new house that's being built. Fanny August. So we went and saw Fanny, and she's talked to us several times. She showed us the drying of different herbs. She talked about how she packages them and prepares them, how she teaches other people about those plants. The students, before they go down to Dominica, will collect some of this information, and they'll have to learn a little bit before they go, but then they'll also have to be involved in that recording of that history when they're there. Another part that Laura mentioned as well is this idea of preparations. And as we think about languages and the ways that you say those things, I really struggled with what the right word was for this. I said recipe, I said preparation. Sometimes we would have like a disconnect of what are we trying to get at? But we were trying to get at, how do you put this together? Not just what is the plant that's being used, but how is the plant put together in some sort of medicinal preparation. And so Jungle Bay and Laura, the Kalinago, and I have all worked together with that. The book that Lorenzo mentioned, you can see a copy of it here. It was a small batch production that, Laura, we think only a couple thousand copies, maybe a couple hundred.
A couple thousand. Yeah.
So initially there was a small batch of this that was produced as part of a grant from the UNESCO World Heritage Foundation, primarily in the southeast of Dominica. Now, remind you, Lorenzo talked about the island being wiped with Hurricane Maria. All of that, those plants are not in the same place anymore, right? And those plants are not just plants to the southeast, they're plants to the whole island. So we had started with examples of having students go and find a plant, learn about it, then go through that documentation. Made them go on scavenger hunts. They would touch a lot of plants and it would be the wrong plant all the time. Then I got nicer in my teaching and I realized I should probably tell them the plant that they're being assigned because the pictures change over time, right? In different seasons. It might be flowering, it might not be flowering. So they started learning more, and Jungle Bay also started planting more plants around Jungle Bay. So if you go and you search for Jungle Bay Dominica on the website as well, there's a lot of things associated with the Garden of Eden, but that's because they planted a lot of the biodiversity to connect people to that nature and to share some of those components with people that go there. The other thing that we started doing together that has become a regular activity, again, in the old Jungle Bay, we started having these tea tasting sessions where we would make traditional teas and we would put them together and we would talk about the proposed medicinal uses. Now, at the point, I was really trying to get to an exact amount. I was like, Lorenzo, is it 3 leaves? Is it 4 leaves? It's not an exact, it's a titration, right? Because the answer might be a little bit different for each of us for what we need in that process. But I was not there in my understanding yet. But this is what Jungle Bay has put together. And so they have tea tasting experiences now for all guests from around the world. Laura, you would say this is one of your most popular activities at Jungle Bay when people are there, correct?
Absolutely. I even said that this morning when someone mentioned how much fun they had yesterday. And I said, well, it's one of the favorites. Yeah.
So you can see the plants are labeled. You can select the different plants. You can put together a medicinal tea. You sit with the experts. You learn what that is about, and you learn how to put it together and learn what that looks like. This is also the Kalinago Corner, and Laura talked about connecting people to the Kalinago products. Lorenzo talked about having a brand or something there. But I always think, to Claire's point of like hearing something and seeing something, it's really the story of these people, you know, Fanny and Cece, like different people in the community and their experience with making that. Napoleon, making boats for 50, 60 years. Those are the things that always connect me, not just the land, not just a product, but the story behind it and the people. And so Laura, and Jungle Bay have been a part of thinking about sustainable ways we can do that. When we think about healthcare and we think about global rotations, we kind of have this pillar, but what I want you to take away is not all the words, just that a lot of the things that we do are focused on sustainability. So we need to make sure that what we're putting in place for Lorenzo or what Lorenzo wants to do can last for generations. It's not just one and done and then it's gone. We need to think about how we can be leaders together and we can develop these partnerships for mutual benefit. We really do I consider Lorenzo a brother. He's probably, again, my daughter's been giving him a pretty hard time this week, but he's been like an uncle there as well. We also have to think about what are the local needs and the local wants and desires as we work together in our different components. So part of what, and Olivia can kind of come up and talk with us as well, because this is something that we've been all working on simultaneously together. So in my role here on campus, I am a part of University of Iowa Mobile Clinics, and we serve a lot of diverse communities in the Iowa City area as well. Some of the same problems that we're talking about with Lorenzo of understanding culture, understanding heritage, understanding traditional healing exist here too. And if you think about language, medical language is a language of its own as well, right? So we have different dialects, we have different ways of speaking things. I give the example, you can speak Spanish, there's variations from Honduras and Guatemala and Nicaragua and Mexico and Spain, right? All different word choices. And then we add the medical word on top of that. And there's just this disconnect that happens. So Olivia has been a part of a process to enhance information access for patients. And could you talk a little bit about some of the things that we saw initially when we were trying to document some of this?
So
I think it's going. Can you hear? Okay.
So initially when we started back last September, so just a year and a half ago, we had a specific EMR that we were using for Mobile Clinic. And if you don't know, Mobile Clinic goes around the Iowa City area and it serves a lot of different communities. For example, Arabic, Spanish, and there wasn't a really great way to kind of document what they were used to saying to what we were used to seeing. So for the biggest example, birthday, we do month, day, year, they do day, month, year. So that became an issue, especially when we were getting repeat patients, not being able to find them, duplication of efforts, missing information here or there. Maybe they filled something out one time, we don't have documentation, they're doing it again. Maybe we missed something. And then with Mobile Clinic, there's always new students, always new preceptors, different pharmacists, different doctors who are coming and helping us out. So it just makes for a really big barrier between the providers and the patients.
So one of the things that we did find that is used in global health work that we also had started using in Dominica as well. We had started with this shared system again to connect students with this idea of a skill set of navigating these different systems, being able to make sure that we're caring for patients in a culturally appropriate way and in a way that also incorporates availability of resources in their language. Our system was not doing that, and there was not support for that. And so Olivia and another student conducted a literature search, and we found these open source software systems that are used around the world to be able to do some of that. So kind of like what Claire did with, this system, you have a system, you have a couple of pieces, you have the Google piece for the slide, you have a couple of things, you put it together. But these building blocks for the software and the systems, there are free components that are open source. So collaborators around the world are making that better. So we looked at the different systems, and you can see how much they're used or not used around the world. There's really a lot. But one of the things that we're hoping to do is that if we come to Lorenzo's community, or if we're working with nurses, we're using telehealth and different things, we can talk about integrative medicine, we can talk about healing, but in most of our systems, there's not a way that we really capture what people are doing to heal themselves traditionally, the plants and the medicinal knowledge as well. And in fact, sometimes I say we can be a little bit judgy about that, right? Instead of thinking about how to work together in harmony, most of the time we're talking about, are you going to use your medicine, or are you going to use, sometimes we say alternative therapies, instead of saying, what are you using to make yourself better or to feel healthy? What do you believe in? How do we put that together? And so in part of these systems, not only can you use them in 30+ languages or develop more languages, you can also have different elements like specific questions, specific prompts in the different fields that look at these different traditional healing components. So Olivia also puts up with me, and Laura, and we had, again, a former student that has coded a lot of things for the Veterans Administration. And part of the discussions this time were, what are the pieces that Laura would need? Part of what Laura does is also, if you're an employee of Jungle Bay, you are receiving care there. You're a part of the Jungle Bay family. And we, again, we're taking care of each other. We're making sure that everybody is okay together. So we'll take care of the Jungle Bay family. Lorenzo will take care of us when we're in the Kalinago. We'll put it together. And again, we get more effort. We get more things done together working in that synergy. So I think that we want you to understand that Lorenzo, me, Laura, all talk about this idea of interconnectedness, and I'm going to bring Laura back up here. Laura met Lorenzo, and she said, hey, you have to meet this chief. He's really cool. I think you'll like him. And I met Lorenzo, and I remember we were sitting down having a meal, and he said, I think we're going to work together. I think we're brought together for different reasons, but we are supposed to help each other in different ways. And we need to start thinking about how we appreciate those different cultures and overcome barriers like language, preserve it in our process. Otherwise, what we have is miscommunication, and we have things that hinder our relationships, our trust, and the way that we're sharing information. So we want you to kind of hopefully take away that you too could be a part of that process. So from simple tools, like Claire said, sometimes just getting it down on paper and then taking it to the next step, thinking about documentation and education. Those were some of the first things that we did together. And Laura and the community have been a part of the Creole aspect of the language. And then again, we can apply this to think about how are these things discussed in different communities. So Laura mentioned South Korea, there's Japan, there's Vietnam, there's Dominica. There's many different ways to say the same thing. We just all want to be healthy, and we want to be well, and we want to feel connected, and we want to have good partners to work together. So I want to say a big thank you to Laura for being here. Lorenzo went to the restroom. He'll be right back. For Claire, for Marigail, for Olivia, being here again. It's just this joint effort to put things together, and we're very fortunate. If you would like to stay and ask some questions, we're happy to do that. We know we're at the end of the time, and if you have class or other things, we certainly understand that too. But thank you for coming, and hope that our paths connected for a certain reason today too.